A great start by Griffin Canning, a monster game by Pete Alonso. The New York Mets have now won the season series against the Dodgers. Are the Mets now the best team in the National League? We'll talk about that and more on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. The Mets have now played 3 games against the Dodgers in this series. They won one in extras. They narrowly lost one in extras where they were holding a lead in the 9th inning. And then, third game of this series, late on Wednesday night, the Mets had a dominant win over the Dodgers. Led the game wire to wire. It never was close. First inning, the Mets jump out to a 3-0 lead. Francisco Lindor gets hit by a pitch, leading the game off. Brandon Nimmo hits a hard ground ball to Kike Hernandez, and he does not field it cleanly at all. Goes past him into the outfield. The Mets suddenly have runners at first and third. Nobody out for Juan Sodto. Brandon Nimmo quickly steals second base, so you got 2 runners in scoring position for Sodto. Sodto rolls one over, but it has an RBI attached to it, and it also advances Nimmo to third. And then Pete Alonso, once again coming through. He's had a huge series in Los Angeles. Hits a 2-run homer to put the Mets up 3-0 before Griffin Canning even takes them out. And Canning did the rest. He was unbelievable. Best start of the season for him. Last couple starts before this, we saw the command sort of waver a little bit. We saw a guy that struggled, and that's going to happen. You know, I talked about it in his last start. I think that the episode title was Regression to the Mean Dooms the Mets. And it wasn't a knock on Canning. It's the fact that Griffin Canning pitching to a sub-3 ERA all season is not necessarily a likely outcome. It might happen. He's back under 3 after this start today. But you'd expect that there's going to be some bad starts mixed in there. This was a great start. And this is everything we've seen from Canning this season when he's right. That ability to lean on the slider and the changeup particularly, and in the way that that impacts his fastball, where he's pitching backwards and really gets hitters uncomfortable. And then it just turns into a game of chess where he's able to throw fastballs and counts where guys are sitting on a slider or a changeup, and he's able to blow pitches by them. He's then able to work that slider and that changeup and everything sort of starting at the knees. The way he was picking off the corners, it was just watching him paint, and you know, you're getting so much weak contact. There was 20 foul balls in this game from the Dodgers, a lot of them foul tips where he's just throwing a slider or a changeup that's diving below the zone and guys are just getting a piece of it. And so he's able to, throw pitches early in counts below the zone, steal some strikes. Other times, if guys are not chasing, and he's able to come into the zone, whether it is still going to the off-speed pitches to get those strikes or if he's blowing fastballs by people. But I think it's just this ability now to have 3 pitches that he really trusts and has on a string that he could throw in any count. And it was just masterful the way he worked this Dodgers lineup. It was, again, his best start of the season. Not that there's any doubt about it. First time this year, he's gone 6 scoreless, and there was never a threat. I mean, you look at every single inning, there was never 2 base runners in the same inning. He walked 1, gave up 3 hits, but never in the same inning was there a base runner. So typically a guy might reach first base. That's it. I think it was 1 double, 2 singles, and then the walk. It was just a masterpiece by Griffin Canning. I think the most impressive thing was his final inning, sitting at 90 pitches, goes back out there for the 6th. We've seen this year a lot of times. Griffin Canning, in that spot, the Mets probably pull him, for a lot of this year. And at that point in the game, it was still 3-0. So very well could have gone to the bullpen because it was still a close enough game, but they trusted Canning. I think this is what you're going to see as the Mets maybe transition into having a 6-man rotation at some point soon. We'll talk about the Sean Manaea update in the final segment, but you have Montas and Manaea coming back, and you have 5 guys that are throwing the ball well in the rotation. The Mets might go with the 6-man rotation, a traditional one, to keep everybody fresh throughout the rest of the season. And if they do that, you're going to need your starting pitchers to get pushed when they are on the mound because they're getting that extra rest. You also have a man short or you're a man down in the bullpen. You're going to need to have guys get through 6. And I loved seeing Canning go out there for that 6th inning at 90 pitches and put together his best inning. I mean, he was great in that inning, got Mookie Betts to fly out on 3 pitches, struck out Freddie Freeman on 4, needed 2 pitches to get through Teoscar Hernandez, who lined out. By the way, little side note on that line out, and just in general, it's not like that was the best play that Jeff McNeil played. He's playing a pretty darn good center field. I mean, he made a couple catches, really covering a lot of ground, cut off a ball in the gap. Right now I looked up the defensive metrics, and this is before today's game when he did have a really solid game, I felt like, in center field. He has been a net positive defensively in center field. So as much as you could talk about this idea of what's the Mets, center field plan for the rest of the season, Jose Siri is going to get back. Is there a chance that a Jet Williams can make an impact or a Drew Gilbert, the guys in the minor leagues? Don't be surprised if Jeff McNeil starts a playoff game in center field, honestly, because pretty impressive what he's doing out there. And I just thought it was a really solid game from him out in center field. He did catch that final line out. Not that it was the best play he made on the day, but it just jogged that in my memory. Overall, though, 9 pitches for Canning in that last inning, so he ends the day at 99 pitches to get through 6. Again, 6 scoreless, 7 strikeouts, 3 hits, 1 walk. Lowered his season ERA back down to 2.90. Now, after that, Jose Castillo came on for the 7th inning, worked around a double and a hit by pitch, struck out the final 2 batters that he saw in that inning to strand both of those runners. Dalton Rushing and Kike Hernandez were his strikeout victims. Then, top of the 8th inning, Brandon Nimmo gets hit by a pitch. Juan Sodto draws his 3rd walk of the game. I felt like Sodto was having more fun in this game than we have seen all season. And that kind of goes across the board for the Mets. Something about getting off to that early lead and then the rhythm that Canning was in, it just felt like the entire team was calm and they were having a blast. You saw Acuna in the dugout with a catcher's mask on and all the guys sort of huddle around him on the steps. Sodto was in that mix, smiling the whole game. There was a great viral moment where they were all doing a little bottle flip challenge. You have a water ball, it doesn't have much water in it. Can you flip it up and have it land, straight down? And you saw Sodto was the guy that got, after all these guys are struggling, first flip lands it, which just reminds you of your friend in high school or your friend in Little League growing up, that the guy that was the best at everything for me. Shout out to Brent Kessinger. But the guy that's just good at everything, and that's kind of what it felt like. Sodto just picks it up and does it. It's a side note in a great game, but it's just something about the vibe for the Mets in this one really showed a nonchalant, but not in a bad way. It's just a carefree, is probably better than nonchalant, carefree energy in that dugout. And Soto's at bats. He's smiling, he's laughing. It just feels like he has settled down. And he had a really good game without doing too much because he had that one ground out, but that had an RBI attached to it. And he walked 3 times. And all those walks kept on setting up Pete Alonso. And Pete Alonso came through in the 8th inning. I mean, obviously came through in the 1st as well, but he got a sinker down the middle and just demolished it. Absolute tank, 112 miles per hour off the bat, went nearly 450 feet. Just a mammoth of a home run. All of a sudden, a 3-0 game turns into a 6-0 game. The Mets were getting Edwin Diaz up in the bullpen to face the top of the Dodgers lineup. Instead, Jose Castillo went back out there for a 2nd inning of work, got the Mets through that inning, which sets them up very well for the final game of this series. Ryan Stanek closes it out. The Mets were in line to shut out the Dodgers for just the 4th time this season that they had been held to no runs. Stanek blew that, gave up a solo homer to Andy Pajes, but was able to get 3 outs and have a relatively easy inning other than the home run. And the Mets cruised to a 6-1 victory. Really impressive win. Couple of notes for Pete Alonso. He tied Darryl Strawberry for the most multi-home run games in Mets history at 22. past David Wright, who was in the building. Wright had 21 in his career. He also is now 2 home runs shy of David Wright. That was Pete Alonso's 240th career home run. He is a dozen away from tying Strawberry for the franchise record. So really cool stuff there. Pete Alonso, a monster game. Griffin Canning, an outstanding start. And the Mets have now won 4 of 6 games against the Dodgers this season, which leads me to ask, are the New York Mets now the favorites in the National League? We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. NBA finals are soon to be in full swing. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel will make it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. It's not just the NBA action. You got your MLB action too. So maybe you're looking at the game and you're saying, you know what? Pete Alonso had a monster game, but maybe it's Juan Sodto's turn to go yard. You can take a Juan Sodto home run prop with the Mets to win in a same-game parlay, and if both those things happen, you can win big. And if you're new to FanDuel, the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. If you're liking the video, throw a like on it and leave a comment. Do you think the Mets are the favorites in the National League? Or if not them, who is? I'll look forward to see what you all have to say about that. I'm looking at the Mets right now, and they had a down skid lately, and it was obviously sparked, or it all started when the Mets lost the Subway Series to the Yankees, and they had a tough stretch. They lost the final game of that series to the Yankees. They lost 2 games to the Red Sox, so it was the first time this season where they had lost 3 games in a row, but they salvage a win against the Red Sox. They come home. They beat the Dodgers in a hard-fought series. They handle business against the White Sox and the Rockies, and here they are going into Los Angeles. They could have won all 3 games so far. They were in line, 9th inning with a 1-run lead to win game 2 of this series. They won the first game in extras, and now they win in convincing fashion in game 3. And I like the Mets today. David Peterson versus Landon Knack. I feel great whenever David Peterson's on the mound. So all of a sudden, the Mets very well could win this series. A 4-game set, you take 3 of 4 against the Dodgers. That's an impressive win. Then you're going to stay on the road, but you go to Colorado to face the Rockies. Granted, the Rockies just swept the Marlins. So a pretty impressive series for them. They get a day off to revel in that before the Mets come to town. But we saw that Rockies team. The Mets should at least beat them. There's every chance that the Mets can end up going through this stretch here. And if they win this series, first of all, they'll be the first team in the National League to get to 40 wins this season. The Tigers are already there in the American League at 41 wins, but there's no other team in the NL that's even at 39 right now, a couple at 38. So they could be the first to 40, and you could just keep on piling on. Could the Mets win out this week? I don't think that that's outside the realm of possibility if they can win this game on Thursday and carry this momentum into Colorado and have a big offensive weekend. All of a sudden, we could be looking at the Mets going into their homestand next week at 43-23, 20 games over 500, which is a stark difference from where the Mets were at last year, where they went into June 11 games under and then obviously took off from there. But this is a really good baseball team. And you look at series like this, where you are going into enemy territory against a great Dodgers team. Granted, the Dodgers right now are not the same team that the Mets saw in the playoffs last year. And I don't think that this set of 2 series played, pretty much, within a week of each other is going to phase the Dodgers, where if these 2 teams have a NLCS rematch again, they very well, or they will feel very confident in their ability to beat anybody is the Dodgers. And this is getting the Dodgers at a time where they're not at their best. Their pitching is not up to the level that it can get to. They have a lot of really important arms on the injured list. There's definitely a A lot of room for the Dodgers to get better, but you still have to credit the Mets for going to Los Angeles and playing this well. And if you look at the best teams in the National League, I just did the power rankings over at justbaseball.com. And it was my brainchild. I went through, did all 30 teams, was ranking them. It was a lot early this week trying to come up with my final rankings. And actually, if you want kind of full analysis on that, I'm on the Just Baseball show today as well. So you can check that out, where myself and Aram Layton just go through the whole list. And we talk about a lot of different things. We talked about who's the World Series favorite right now, or who's the favorite to come out of the National League. I asked Aram, would you take the Dodgers or the field? We both sort of agreed we'd take the field being the Cubs, the Phillies, and the Mets. 3 really good teams in the National League right now. When I ranked these teams, I went Tigers 1 because they've just been so good this season. I mean, 2 months in, they've been the best team in baseball. They are the first team to 40 wins. It felt like if you're ever going to put the Tigers number 1 on a power rankings, it's right now. So I gave them that acknowledgement, because this is not just projecting forward the way I do power rankings. I look at the last month. I look at your season standings overall, because that's always part of how you're going to rank teams. But I'm never going to just say, oh, this team has the best record, they're 1. This team has the second best record, they're 2. You go to last month's standings, who's the hotter team. You look at head-to-head, and that's another sort of tiebreaker for me. And then the last one is projecting forward. And so that's how I sort of come up with my power rankings. I went Tigers 1, Yankees 2, because I think the Tigers had earned that. And the Yankees, I was between Yankees, Mets for number 2. The Yankees have a guy right now in Aaron Judge that is on a different planet, and their lineup has been so good this season. It felt like in a power ranking setting, it made sense to put the Yankees over the Mets, because they did have the head-to-head win lately, and I think these teams are neck and neck right now. But then it got to the National League teams. The Phillies had a better month of May. The Mets had that little rough stretch, but now they're out of it. They're on the other side of it. The Phillies just got swept by the Brewers. They're now maybe going through their little bit of a slump. And the Mets are in prime position right now to really take off in the standings. They will see each other head-to-head again coming up. That's going to be an awesome series to see if the Mets can go into Philly and do what they're doing to the Dodgers right now. But I feel like this is a Mets team that is so confident. Now, I talked about the energy in the club, in the dugout in the last segment. To me, that's real. When you see them having fun, that's what happened last year. That's when the Mets took off like the rocket ship that they were in 2024, is because of OMG and having fun. And it takes time to get that new identity. This is why I felt like it was the right move not to bring back Jose Iglesias, because this team had to find that new identity, that new core, that new vibe. And when you see Acuna and Mauricio and Marte and Soto, and they're all having a blast in that dugout, it is a new team. It feels different, but this is a group now that maybe went through a little bit of adversity, came out the other side of it, back to playing great baseball, and realizing they got a great chance to win this year. I mean, to win it all. I mean, this is a team that has all the components you want. It's still a long season. There's still 4 months left. I don't know by the end of the year who's going to be the favorite, the Mets, the Phillies, the Cubs, or the Dodgers, but there's 4 great teams in the National League right now. And really, whoever's hottest at the end is the team that'll probably take it when it's all said and done. But if you're asking for a favorite right now in the National League, the Dodgers, just based on their roster and who they've been, they're always going to be the betting favorite. But I like this Mets group. I like the fact that they have 3 guys that can carry you in this lineup in a major way as superstars, with Lindor, Soto, and the way Alonso's swinging it this year. And Brandon Nimmo starting to swing the bat better as well. That's a good 1 through 4. I don't think there's many teams in baseball that have a better 1 through 4. Sure, the Dodgers might, but here's the Mets 1 through 4, and they're beating the Dodgers in this series. Look at the bullpen. Edwin Diaz, Reed Garrett, Huascar Braziban. Those 3 guys, to me, are really good late-inning relievers that can hold on to the 1-run games. The Mets rotation has been the best in baseball this year, and they're still about to get 2 really good arms back. So they got a 2.87 ERA, and who knows who's going to get pulled from this rotation because of how good it's been. It's a complete team right now. And even better, over at Just Baseball, speaking about the power rankings, we also had our top 100 come out this week, our update. And the Mets have 6 guys in the top 100. So they have capital in the farm system to make moves at the deadline to get even better. Still plenty of season left. But right now, I don't think there's a team in the National League I like more than the Mets. I think there's 4 teams that are all really good. But the way I rank them in the power rankings is how I see it at this very moment. It's Mets, Phillies, Cubs, Dodgers. And I expect the Dodgers to end the year at the top of that list still just because of who they are. But I don't think the Mets are going to be scared of them. That's for sure. And I think that there's every chance this might be the Mets' year. It's exciting stuff. We'll see how things transpire from here. But this has been a very fun series to watch. I think it does set the stage for the Mets to have a great week. I want to talk about that a little bit more in the next segment. Will the Mets finish off the Dodgers and win this 4-game series? Also, Mark Vientos, the injury not as bad as we once thought. I'll give you an update there as well as an update on Manaea. We're going to close out the show with all of that in just a minute. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. It's our texting service where we get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways and get the lineup graphics sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, the Mets are set up very well to win this series on Thursday. You got David Peterson on the mound, but behind him, you got Edwin Diaz, who's now gotten 2 days off in a row. Reed Garrett and Huascar Braziban each got a day. So your best trio of relievers are all locked and loaded for Carlos Mendoza to deploy them wherever he needs to. Jose Castillo, maybe the only arm not available after throwing 2 innings in this game. So the Mets should have all the weapons at their disposal. And remember, the last time David Peterson saw the Dodgers, it was the game after the rain-soaked Friday night marathon game where the Mets exhausted all of their pitching and lost. And David Peterson goes out there and he gets all but 4 outs in that game. Went 7 2/3, allowed 2 runs. Huge Mets win. I feel great about Peterson on the mound. I really do. This guy's been nails all year. I'm excited to see him go out there and have another tough challenge. I think he can absolutely deliver another gem. You got Landon Knack going for the Dodgers. Knack did pitch a good game against the Mets in that other series. He went 6 strong, allowed just 1 run. Then he went 6 strong, allowed 1 run against the Yankees. So a couple quality starts in a row for a guy that hasn't been great this season. We'll see if he can sustain that, but the Mets lineup is swinging it pretty good. I like their chances to win this game. I really do. And then if they win this game, which honestly is a gravy game, because to me, I just want to see the Mets win 2 games in this series, and they've done that. So this would just be a cherry on top of what I think has already been a very positive series for the Mets. Then you go and you play the Rockies at Coors. And yes, the Rockies, again, swept the Marlins, so they're playing a little bit better. But the Mets just swept the Rockies. And it's not like the Marlins are the best team out there. I mean, talent discrepancy-wise, the Mets should win anytime they play the Rockies. I'll give them a pass because it's at Coors, so crazy things can happen. But the Mets should win that series. And so, if nothing else, even if they lose the final game of this series to the Dodgers and lose one of their games against the Rockies, looking like a very likely winning road trip here. And there's a chance it's a great road trip because if they do win on Thursday and then they sweep the Rockies, all of a sudden you get to that mark I was talking about, a 43-23 record through, 66 games this season, 20 games over 500. So the Mets are in a really nice spot. I guess so. They're what? There are 62 games. They got 100 games left to play. Where are the Mets going to finish? They play, at this point, let's just say they go and they win 6 out of every 10 games from here on out. You're looking at a 99-win team. So that's where the Mets are at. That's what's in line for them. This is a year where you should be able to push for 100. That's awesome. That's great to see. Look at the Mets winning percentage right now at 629. So you maintain that. That is well over 100 wins. So we'll see what the Mets do from here, but I'm excited to see how they finish off the Dodgers in this series, if they can finish off the Dodgers, if they can at least hang in there for another game, make another one close. I'm all about these matchups. These have been a lot of fun to watch these two teams go head-to-head. Now, beyond this game and the rest of the week, got some really important updates on some injured Mets. Mark Vientos, a low-grade hamstring strain, which is the best possible news. He's not going to be out for too long. 10 to 14 days. For me, this injury has turned into a good thing. And that sounds horrible. And Mark Vientos going down is considered a good thing. But I honestly think it is, because this is a guy that needed a stint in the minor leagues. He did. He didn't have any options, but it felt like he needed to go down, get his swing right, play every day, come back. Now you get that luxury. You get a reset. You get to take a pause on the struggles that have been this season for Mark Vientos. Stay on the road probably with the team. Actually, I guess he flew back to New York, so I guess he's not on the road with the team still. Chill out in New York for a little bit. Relax. You get 10 to 14 days of just rest. Once he's symptom-free, they're going to ramp him right back up. He'll begin a rehab stint. Maybe it is 2 weeks from now. And then he gets 20 days. So 20 days for a rehab stint means he can get 3 weeks of at-bats in AAA. That gives you time to see Ronnie Mauricio a little bit. So far, not very good. I think he went 0 for 4 again today, and the at-bats weren't great. But, hey, it's early. We'll see. He did hit one ball really hard. It was just right at Max Muncy. But you get a chance to look at Mauricio, and then you're going to be able to make a decision. And I'm not saying you need to use all 20 days to get right, but they have the luxury to do that now, where they can let Mark Vientos really get right and see some AAA pitching, get his swing back, and come up as a confident hitter. And then you see where you're at. You see where you're at with Brett Beatty in 3 to 4 weeks. You see where you're at with Ronnie Mauricio in 3 to 4 weeks. You see where you're at with Jeff McNeil. And then you decide where to put your roster from there, how you're going to construct things. When I was talking with Arm on the Just Baseball show, he asked him about the length of the Mets lineup. And my gut reaction is, well, it is a pretty long lineup. You know, when you have Jeff McNeil bagging at the bottom of the lineup, the way he's been swinging it this year, Tyrone Taylor's been swinging it much better lately. I think the Mets 1 through 9 are pretty solid, but you look at it from a more national media perspective, someone who's not watching the team every day, and it's Lindor, Sodto, Alonso, and what else? If you look at the stats this season, yes, Brett Beatty has had his moments. Yes, McNeil has had his moments. Yes, even Nimmo at times has had his moments, but collectively, the guys that are having great seasons, really, it's Lindor and Alonso. So we talk about the length of this lineup, and to me, I think the missing piece has been Mark Vientos. Because Vientos, after the playoff run last year, where he was the Mets' best hitter, or their second best hitter to Alonso, he was a star this offseason, right? He was courtside at Knicks games, and it felt like he was ready to kind of ascend and vie to be an all-star this year, and that just hasn't happened. But if Mark Vientos now gets a reset, comes back after a stint in AAA where he's able to get his swing back, and maybe if Brett Beatty continues to play well, he comes back sort of really locked into being a DH potentially too. You might see the best version of him where all of a sudden Vientos can come off the injury list. He might have one of those stretches where he homers 4 times in a week. And then he could take off like a rocket ship. He has, I think, was it 5 or 6 home runs this year? I want to say 6, but regardless, that's through 53 games played, I think. Last year, he had 27 in 111 games. There's a lot of room there for him to get into his power more and to be a more impactful bat. And so while you never want to see a guy go down, to me, this was one of those it was supposed to happen injuries, because I think it might get him right. And again, it gives you a chance to see Mauricio a little bit, and then you'll decide who goes down whenever Vientos is ready to return. Now, the other note that I had here before we close out the show, Sean Manaea is going to begin a rehab assignment this week. He's going to start on Friday. They're not in Brooklyn, but he's going to pitch for the Cyclones, and he's supposed to throw 2 ups, so 2 up downs, 2 innings, 35 pitches, what the goal is there. And then he moves along his rehab process. So you're going to get those 2 guys back at this point, potentially before the All-Star break, to get both Montas and Manaea back, which is massive because you want to get some looks at them so you know what you need at the deadline. But the Mets are in great shape right now. Having those 2 guys on the mend where the rotation's already at, feels like a good spot to be in for this Mets team. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. Tomorrow's show, I'll break down final game of this series with the Dodgers, probably look ahead to the Rockies series, but I also want to talk top prospects, so we'll see. I might go live after the game tomorrow night. I got to see how my schedule is shaping up. There's obviously Chris is still going to do his postcast, but I might go live as well so that you'll have a show breaking down the Dodgers game, and then I can get into some more prospect talk for your typical Friday show. So we'll see if I end up doing that. It really just depends on my schedule, but I'm kind of leaning that way. So if you don't want to miss that live show, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you're listening on the audio side, follow, rate, and review, and you'll be able to listen to both shows on your podcast feeds. As always, thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything in the world of sports. Talking about Locked On Sports today with our local host from each team, league-wide host from each league, by Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube.